Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, they were back to working on this timing gear for the Austin car from 1928. I believe it's an Austin 7 is the model number of the car. It's a little four-cylinder engine. And we were sent in a busted, broken up gear and was asked to make a replica of it. And that's what we've been working on in a couple of videos that have already been going on. Started out, we had a casting made. I made a pattern, sent it to a foundry, had a casting made. We've been working on machining the casting. The next step for machining this casting, though, is we need to turn the outside diameter, and we also need to cut the gears. There's going to be a helical or spiral type gear that goes into this gear, and we'll be doing that over on my horizontal milling machine with my lead attachment that allows us to cut spiral gears. But before we can do that, I've got to get this outside diameter generated, and I also need to have a mandrel to mount this on. So if you remember, if you've watched the previous videos, if you haven't, this is a tapered bore in here, and we got the taper set up on the lathe already to match this taper. But we need to make a special arbor that has that taper that will allow us to put this up on a piece of metal that we can put into the lathe, spin it on its center so that it's running concentric with the center, cut that outside diameter so that it's running again on the center, and then we'll also use that mandrel to machine the gears because we're going to have to mount it over on the horizontal milling machine. So today's job, we're going to be making that custom turning mandrel with a tapered hub on it, or a tapered shaft on it that this hub will go up on. So let's get over here and get it knocked out. I'll show you my game plan first, and we'll go to the lathe and start making some chips. So I've got a little sketch here of what we're going to be doing, and to make it, we just got a piece of 1-inch stock. We'll put this in the lathe, and we're going to turn that taper. Again, we've got the lathe already set up to cut that taper. We haven't changed it since we did the bore in the hub. So we can use that same setup to cut that taper. And we'll also have a little threaded end down here that I'm going to put a nut up on. We'll use a nut and a washer to just tighten it up. That'll tighten it up on that taper, hold everything in place for us to do our machining. So that's the game plan. Fairly simple. We'll just turn the end down to 3/4. This is going to be a 3/4 16 thread. I've got a fine thread nut that we're going to be using on there. It just gives us a little bit more strength holding that together. That will push the hub up onto that taper, lock it in place, and then we'll leave a piece of shaft on the other end that we can just put into the lathe or the milling machine, depending on where we're at, to turn everything out, and the hub will be mounted on that taper. All right, let's go to the lathe and see if we can get this thing knocked out. All right, we're going to start by facing this end off as we usually do. We get a nice surface to start with on the end. Do one more pass there. All right, next I'm going to come in with a center, and we're going to be using a center particularly over on the milling machine just for some added support while we're doing the cutting the gears. But I want to go ahead and get that put in there. First step, we're going to turn in, I don't know, just probably an inch is all we need. It's not a critical measurement. I'm just going to put a mark there. That's just, we're going to turn this down to 3/4 of an inch, and that will be where we thread our nut up on. So I'm just going to come in here, we'll touch off, and just turn about 100 thousandths off there. Get a measurement on that. Take another 100 thou off of that. We're going down to 3/4 of an inch, which is 750 thousandths. This should get me close to 800 thousandths. Just double check that. All right, we're at 808 on the calipers and 808 on the digital readout. So I'm just going to dial into 3/4 on the DRO, which is 750 right there. And this should be our final pass here on this diameter. We'll come back and thread that in just a bit. All right. So now I'm going to cut my taper, and like we've talked about previously, I have my compound set at the taper angle that we want to cut on this. I had set that up in a previous video using the original camshaft. This mounts to get that taper set up exactly the same. We just use a dial indicator on the original taper, but now I want to come in here and actually cut this taper in here. So I'm using the compound to actually come across there, and you'll notice we're going to feather out. It's cutting a taper, and I'll feed in with the cross slide, and we're just going to continue doing this until we get our taper where we want it. Come back into my end, and I'm going to zero my Z-axis here, and I'm going to pull this out of the way now where I can put that gear up on there and just do a test fit. Oops. Big end has to go on first. All right, so we still got a little ways to go there. I just want to make sure we don't go too far or not far enough. So I'm going to dial my carriage back to 0 where I zeroed it out on the digital readout. And I'm just going to take a little bit more here. All right, it goes up on there a little bit farther. Still not quite where we want to be at, so we'll take about another 10 or 20 thousandths off of that. We'll go back to 0 here again. That's probably about as far up on there as I really want to go. I want to have it where the threads are going to be pushing up on it. So let me see where we're at here. I'm just going to put a mark back there on the back of the hub. I know that hub is 7/8 of an inch thick, and yeah, we're right there at it. So I think we're going to stop right there. Now, the last thing I want to do is I just want to turn just a little bit up here on the end, and that will allow me to have a surface that is turned true with the rest of these surfaces in case I need to put this in a 4-jaw chuck and get it running perfectly true again. So I just want to do just enough to clean that up, where I have a good surface that I can indicate off of. There we go. That'll work. So I've got my compound currently set to that angle. Now that we're going to thread, I need to cut it, bring it back around to 29.5 degrees, which is the angle we thread on. And we'll go ahead and get those threads cut. So I'm through cutting this taper. I don't have anything else that I need to cut this taper on, so I can go ahead and move my compound now. I wanted to make sure I got all of my tapers cut before I did that because I didn't want to have to reset that back up again. All right, let me get that going and we'll cut some threads and have this mandrel knocked out. So we'll go ahead and get this compound around and ready for doing threading. One thing I will note here, I know someone's going to ask why I wasn't using the live center to support this while I was turning that, since I went to the trouble to put a center in there. Good question. The reason is because of the angle of this compound. I just didn't have enough room to get the live center up in there. This was just in the way. But when we flip it back around now for cutting threads, it will be out of the way. And to do that, there's just 2 screws here, or nuts, that hold that in place. And we can now turn this around. And there's a scale on there. I'm just going to set it to 29.5 degrees. Get my old man flashlight out here where I can see what I'm doing. About right there will be good. Again, that's set to 29.5 degrees. And we'll just tighten the compound back up. And now we'll have to rotate our tool post around. So I'm going to loosen it up, and we'll come in here and get it around. And I need to make sure it's square to the machine. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to tighten it up real quick. I'm going to take this tool off. Tailstock in here. And this tailstock, the cylinder on this tailstock should be parallel to the center of everything else. And I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it out just enough there so that this will come in contact with it. This is a quick, easy way of doing this. I'm going to loosen this back up. And we're just going to run it up against it. And when you get that up against it and you can't see any light in there, your tool post should be square to your lathe. So that's a quick, easy way of doing that. I know some people work off the chuck, but the jaws will sometimes get into your way. Some people will work off a piece of work in the chuck. I find this a little bit more accurate because your tailstock should be just perfect. So if you got a good tight lathe. We'll put our tool back in there now. Actually, I need a threading tool. We'll just use this one here. Drop it in, and should be ready to roll. And now we can get our live center back in here to give us some support for this operation. We'll lock our tailstock down, put some good tension on there, and I'll lock that around. All right, let's cut some threads. All right, I got my lathe slowed down here. I just want to see what kind of speed we're going to be running here. Let me find a number to come around. Yeah, I can easily manage that. That's not too fast. So, all right, we're going to start by chamfering that leading edge. I like to put a good, strong chamfer on it. And I like to use my lathe tool to do it with. That way we got the same lead-in angle as the threads. All right, now I'm gonna come over here. We're gonna just touch off on there, right there. And we'll feed in a little bit, and we'll let a number come around and make a scratch pass. Go. I'm going to take my thread pitch gauge here and verify that we are on at 16 threads per inch, and we are. And let's put a little cutting oil on there. And we'll knock these out. Wait for a number to come around on my dial. We'll engage the half nuts. Rinse and repeat. We'll dial in some more. Wait for a number to come around. I'll take a little bit lighter pass this time. We're already down to about the depth of where we need to be. All right, I'm gonna do a test fit. It's going, it's just a little bit tight. I'm just going to probably do a scratch pass on there, not even feed in, and we're going to be really, really close. Let's see if that'll do it. Yeah, perfect. All right, one thread done. Let's mount the part on there. I like to take a little bit of emery cloth and just hit the tops of those threads. It just kind of knocks off any sharp corners so you don't hurt yourself. And let's get this thing mounted up on there. We're going to put our gear up on here. Got a little washer that goes in there. We'll thread our nut up on. I'll go ahead and put the live center back in there. And we'll tighten that up. All right, now between the nut tightening that on there and the friction from that taper, tightening up on that taper, that should be plenty strong enough to hold that gear up on there. And now we need to cut our outside diameter. So I think we're about ready to turn this outside diameter. It should be measuring 4.442. Right now it's a rough casting. It's going to vary where you measure it, but about 4.6. So, you know, we've got what, 150 thousandths to take off of there roughly. So running pretty true. The outside's moving around a little bit, but we're going to true that up right now. Let's go ahead and feed across there. All right, not completely cleaned up, but getting close. Let's take another quick measurement, see where we're at a little bit more accurately here. We're at about 4-inch 578 thousandths. I'm gonna put that in my digital readout. 4.578. Enter. I'm gonna get a measurement here with my micrometer. It's gonna be more accurate, and we are measuring 25 plus 16, so that'd be 541. And that's pretty much what our digital readout's reading. So let's go ahead and got about 100 thousandths here to go. I'm just taking some lighter passes, 20 thousandths. We'll sneak up on that number. So we're at 460. All right, we're going to 442. 25, 35, 45, 46. So we're at 446. We got about 4 more thousandths to take off. I'm gonna just dial in 442. This should be it right here. All right, we're right on the money, 442. That's where we need to be. All right, I need to chamfer these edges. Let me look at the original and see how they did that, and we'll be right back to put that in there. So the originals are chamfered about at a 45-degree angle on both sides in about a 100 thousandths of an inch. Let me just look and kind of get, or about 75 thousandths rather of an inch is what they were, and that's pretty darn close. We'll do the other side. Same thing. Maybe just a little bit more on this side. That'll be it right there. And I think that our gear blank is ready for cutting gear teeth. I'm just going to leave it mounted to this Arbor that we have it on, and we'll go set it up over on the mill machine and see if we can't cut some spiral gears in an upcoming video. Well, there we go. Our gear blank is finished, and this is ready to go to the mill machine and cut some spiral gears. And like I said, we'll be setting up to do that job soon and having a video coming out, hopefully showing that job being completed. So hang loose and come on back soon, and we'll be trying to cut some spiral gears here at VintageMachinery.org. And with that, guys, that's going to be a wrap. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thumbs up, comments, greatly appreciated. Both of them help out tremendously with the analytics at YouTube, which really helps me out a lot personally. So I appreciate you hitting that like button, and I also appreciate you leaving those comments down below. And also big, huge thank you out there to all the supporters of the site. Guys that support me on Patreon, PayPal, and through other means. Like I've said many times, we couldn't do everything we do here if it wasn't for your help, and it is greatly appreciated. And guys, with that, we will catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.